Hi guys, we're live. Okay, today we're going to talk about do you love the struggle? Don't we all? So take it away, Brittany.
Okay. Hello, beautiful people. So this is a good subject. Another one of those things that takes, you don't learn it unless you go through it, right? However, where to start? Okay, so if you read the subject, one of the biggest things for opening is just to put it into perspective. And that is that if we, just like if we didn't have rain or weather that wasn't not so desirable, we wouldn't really appreciate or appreciate the sun and the good weather. It's the same kind of thing here, except when it comes to the struggle that leads us to our success, we also gain strength and insights, and mentally, physically, we become stronger. Mentally, emotionally, we become stronger. So, do you love the struggle? And the reason that that's the question is because loving the struggle is key. When we believe that we're not supposed to have problems, that's our biggest problem, because our problems are what put everything into perspective. It gives us the lessons that we need to move forward. Even if it is someone in your life who is toxic or whatever it might be, there is within that relationship or those circumstances, there is something to be learned. So you get to choose whether you look at it as a struggle and you hang on and like attach yourself to that problem or that struggle, or you attach yourself to the lesson that it's there to give you. So that's a choice that we get to actually make. And that is what is going to determine whether we move forward or we stay stuck within that problem. And mark my word, we will stay stuck in that problem if we attach ourselves to the actual problem and not the lesson that it brings. So a lot of the time what comes up when you say, oh, there's a lesson in everything, oh, it must be teaching me something or whatever, and then the first question that comes to mind is, well, what is it teaching me? What's the lesson? And it's a good question to ask yourself, but don't get hung up in that question, because for everybody it's going to be different, and it depends on how you're looking at it, on what it can teach you. So I know for myself, I would get hung up with that question. Like, well, I don't see it. I don't see the lesson. I don't understand what could possibly be good about this. And as soon as the mind switches to that, it's focusing on the problem and not the lesson or the solution. As soon as we ask, or we say, and we state.
Oh putain, j'ai plus d'internet. Get off the internet, kid.
Was I frozen there?
Frozen out. I thought it was me. I was just telling the kids to get off the internet. I may be.
Okay.
Sorry.
I just looked down and everything was still. I'm like, I don't know what they heard and what they didn't hear.
I think it was me.
Okay, so yeah, what was I saying? So leaving space in your life and honoring that struggle and choosing how to perceive it is vital. Because for myself, well, I'll speak just for myself right now, and that is that everything is better when I love the struggle that I go through. So even though in the moment I might be overwhelmed or confused or hurt or frustrated or whatever that is, if I can step out of myself and recognize that, and recognize how I'm feeling, and recognize that it is a struggle, then I can honor it and I can leave space for it and say, okay, right now I am struggling a little bit. Why is that? And dig deeper into it, and don't beat yourself up for being into it, for struggling or being frustrated or being upset. It really is about honoring what's happening, moving through it stress-free. So even though it is a stressful situation, mentally and emotionally, you can choose to recognize what's happening and move through it with the knowing and with the awareness that this is in my life for a reason, that whatever's happening right now, it is going to serve me somehow. The strength, whether it be mental, emotional, that I get from this, I'm going to need it down the road. So I suppose that could be easier said than done. So it comes right back to just getting started. And when you are in that struggle, allow yourself to take a minute and step back and say, I need to respect this struggle and I need to honor this struggle. And once you start doing that, it becomes easier. Like for me, today is a perfect example. I've had this trip coming up for months, and I haven't really anticipated it. It was a gift from my sister-in-law, and I've been excited, but I haven't put a lot of thought into it. I've been just focusing on my day-to-day activity. Well, boom, I leave tomorrow. And so I have nothing packed. I have work piled up. My laundry's not done. All these things piled up, and I'm going to be gone for a week. So my productivity isn't going to be very good within that week. So all these things on my mind are, they, if I allow myself to get caught up in them, I get overwhelmed. And there's a few things I could take from this. One of them is to be more prepared. And it's not to beat myself up and say, like, you're not prepared. I can't, like, why did I do this? Why was I not prepared? Like, I'm never going to get everything done, and get yourself into a frenzy. Instead, I just say, well, I'm just going to take it one step at a time. And what I don't get done is going to be waiting for me when I get home. And that's all I can do. Next time I'm going to do better to prepare. And even if that's the only lesson, that's serving me. In the past, I would have been freaking out and probably wouldn't be on this call right now, but I can only do what I can do. And this is something that I enjoy doing. So I'm going to honor myself by doing this and just say, well, one step at a time, and that's all I can do. And just honor that. And today is a struggle. It is. I have tons of things that I have to do. And I suppose just being honest with myself about not being prepared, and I'm only going to get so much done, and just being okay with that is what makes it easy. I'm going to pack, I'm going to put on some music or an audio book, and I'm just going to make it a really great day. So yeah, if you
tons to say. So yeah, lovely thread there, Brittany. Very interesting. The thing that gets me is love the struggle. The first part, well, I'm a very dynamic, always being fly off the handle at the nearest opportunity type person. So I'm a very different energy to you. And I think I was also going down a completely different path than yourself. And so my attitude would be, first off, you have to sort of understand the path, right? So this for me took a very long time, and I see things in atoms and energy and wavelengths and stuff, and I had to really do some sort of brain research and neuroscience and all this to understand what was happening in my life. But in the crux of it all is when you have a habit, a bad habit or a good habit, whatever the habit is, your sort of neuron goes that way. It just, goes down that path because that's path of easiness. Like people who smoke, I'll just grab a cigarette. I'm getting a bit pissed off. I'll just grab a cigarette. For whatever reason, that's becomes like a reflex. And so this means that the more you use this nerve this nerve, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? Because it's getting more and more energy and it just grows, okay? So it becomes an addictive situation. So the first step, I think, is I always talk about Alcoholics Anonymous, but they are brilliant because you can talk to an alcoholic as much as you like. You can prove A plus B, goes to C, and he won't see it. And until that person has decided that, yes, I'm an alcoholic, and yes, I want to do something about it, he's going to go down that road, right? Down that path. Like as someone who smokes or takes drugs or whatever. So I was doing pretty much quite a lot of those on and off, but I had these addictive patterns. And so before I could stop and say to myself, like you so readily say, you know, honor the situation. I would have many, many hangouts, and you know, we have lots of people, thank goodness, in this community that we're both part of, who would help us and do all sorts. I had to do many, many hours of work on myself, something I've always done. And sometimes you do work on yourself. There was no internet. You have to remember when I started doing work on myself. So it was, you know, always off to the library, getting books out. And, you know, before you find the book that sort of talks your language or language you can understand it's a bit of a different thing than, you know, starting to read an article. Nope, don't understand it. Get another one. You know, it's not at a touch button quick. So I had to get all this information before I could actually apply anything to it. So once I got the information about this addictive, you know, pathways that the neurons take, and you know, I spare you all the peptides and all the talk, but as a scientist, I needed that information to comprehend what was going on, and to find out that, you know, it's like when you go to the gym and you do, you know, you do this. If you do whatever you do in the gym, I really don't know, but sorry, I just say do this. Okay, very, very silly, sorry. But, you know, your muscles will get bigger and stronger. That's just totally normal. It's the same with the neurons and the pathways they take, right? So it took forever for me. Once I understood that, then I started taking a step back. And I remember the first time I said, what is the lesson here? I was in a traffic jam in a tiny village, and it was suddenly, it was a rugby match or something silly, and I just dropped my son off, and you know, it seemed like the whole world had come to this bloody town to see, to whatever, and we could not move. And I was, you know, sitting there going, rah, 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 and then I just stopped and saw this, you know, this pathway that my neurons were taking totally naturally, and I stopped them. And I took a step back, like you so readily said, and I just said, well, hold on, what's the lesson? And I just was dancing in the car all on my own, because I'd finally took, you know, one step in the right direction by stopping this blooming pathway, just by saying, what is the lesson? And I celebrated that without knowing, you know, exactly what I was doing. But so that is, you know, that is one way. And I'm thinking of all these people that are listening. And when you listen to you, Brittany, you make it sound so easy. You know, oh, of course, yeah, that's so simple. Yeah, I'll do this and I'll do this. And, you know, perhaps it was easier for you, but I had, you know, like 27 years in a country that is totally foreign to me. I speak the language. People can't know I'm foreign, but culturally we are, you know, diametrically opposites. And with, you know, with someone who did not value me as much as he did in the beginning, obviously. So, you know, there was all this and constantly. So it was very, very difficult for me. I'm completely surrounded by no love whatsoever. And, you know, I don't even want to go down the, you know, the road of my parent, you know, how I treated my kids or how much love I could have given them. And, you know, that's another story. But so this is like, you know, I was very addictive in my head with all these relationships I was having with everyone, and very protective also, because I was receiving all this negativity from everyone. I mean, I couldn't even sweep the, you know, the village square, for God's sakes. I was told I was doing it all wrong. Just a blooming broom, for God's sakes, you know, which is now I just say, you know, I think I'm capable of sweeping. But at the time, I just, you know, just went and hid under the table. It was just a nightmare time. So I'm trying to think of all these people who are, you know, who are in these situations. And before you can sort of just take your head out and take a deep breath and see what's going on, you know, it's not as simple. Sometimes it is as simple as Brittany says, you know, and she's very young, you know, she's a little youngster. So, you know, I'm not saying it's easier for her. No, that's not at all what I'm saying. You know, everyone has their own path, and it might be totally difficult for you, and you're only 20, you know, that's just so that you don't, you know, I really am trying to sort of take you maybe from where you are so that you understand. And, you know, maybe if you don't find it as easy, Brittany says, you know, well, maybe, you know, oh, okay, don't beat yourself up is a key point, right? Celebrate your small wins, whatever they are. Do any sort of research that you need to do personally. And it might not be things that I need to look up or Brittany needs to look up. You know, everyone is different. That's, thank God, why we're all, you know, human. And we are beings, so we're acting, whether it's bad or good. But so you have to really just try and find something that's good for you, and grab onto it, and something, you know, something when you're listening to a personal development tape or video or whatever it is you're doing, book, and something will you can't digest that. That's where you need to be working, right? Because you're not, it's sort of, pulling at that string, and that's what you need to work on. But what that is, I can't tell you. For me, it was, I found out this addictive thing, and it resonated with me, but I didn't understand it, and it was, but so that's what I worked on, and that's what I could understand. So, but it took me then, another 2 years or so before, what is the lesson? What is the lesson? What is the lesson? Complete blank would come up. Or, what is the lesson? Well, I don't know, but let's celebrate the fact I stopped, So whatever it was, and I also, like Brittany, very often get caught up. Today she's having like, oh my God, I should be doing this, that. Why didn't I do it? Da, 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 da. So yes, you flagellate. Very easy to do. What's harder to do, though, is to stop flagellating yourself and say, okay, well, why didn't I do this? And one of my famous ones was birthday parties. I got 4 kids. Do you think that I could be ready for a blooming birthday party? No. So I get the kids to, get the invitations out, do all this. I knew when D-Day was. Could I be ready? Could I do it? No. So I thought, okay, I'm now going to learn reverse engineering, something I do for my marketing. I'm now applying in my real life, right? Like Brittany's learning for today, right? So reverse engineering is something so important. I know that on the whatever date, I need to have so many plastic plates, little glasses, such drink, so many people are coming. I know this. I know how to do it. Let's just, so I would get better at this. And one thing I read very recently, and it's just helped me enormously to my last bit of struggle, because I'm so perfect now, for this particular point, is that, a book I was reading about, a neuroscientist anyway, and she had a brain hemorrhage, and she was writing about it. So it's very interesting to have, someone, a great scientist doing, neuro research and stuff, writing about, how the right side took over and she was at one with the universe, and It was completely foreign to her. But anyway, she was writing about this. And this is something I sort of sometimes feel when I meditate well and stuff. And she said, okay, for the first 90 seconds, there's nothing you can do. You are emotionally, you're chemically flooded. Okay. It's a reaction. Like, you're going down that neuro pathway. Nothing you can do. The next 90 seconds is on you. You have that choice. Do you continue being angry? Do you continue being pissed off, mad, sad, whatever it is? Or do you try and stop it, take a step back, and as Brittany says, honor the situation? Okay, so this has really helped me, because sometimes, as I was addicted to all this, and it's really difficult to break when you are addicted to certain conditions and certain words you say to people, the way you want, you want to hurt people, and you're like, well, this just isn't me. When you take a step back, that's just not, why was I doing that? But, you can't sort of analyze it too much, as Brittany was saying. You can only sort of try and move forwards, because otherwise, anyway. So moving forwards, you just have to accept what is and just try and move forwards, right? So the first 90 seconds, you're submerged with chemicals, hormones, whatever it is. The next 90 seconds are on you. So because I was addicted to this sort of behavior, and it is very difficult, because although you are changing, the other person is not. And the other person has no knowledge of all this. And you try and explain it to them, but, they're just going, yeah, right. I don't really have 3 hours to spend here, darling. Can we just move on? And so you get this, and so you're trying desperately to go down a different path, but they're not, and they're coming at you full frontal. And so it's very difficult to block that off. But nevertheless, you try. Eventually, you just lose the plot and you'll explode, or whatever it is you will do. I really do try. I have this relationship with one of my daughters, and I don't want to. I love that person to bits. She's my child. I really do. But, we had this addictive relationship, and it took a long time to see, and et cetera, et cetera. So when I see her, I know it's going to be complicated. I know it's going to be difficult. And she has this relationship with everyone, but whatever. She has her own path to make. But so I really try, because I am the mother and I am the adult and I should know better and all this. I try, and I know this is going to happen. So I really try, and I try, and I try. And sometimes I manage, more and more as I go along this way. But, you know, it's difficult because as a child, and you will know, like a toddler just pushes you, pushes you, pushes you, pushes you, pushes you, pushes you until you just flip your lid. And that's fine because they're searching for their boundaries, right? But when it's two adults, it's like, you know, boundaries should be found. But anyway, so that's another thing. And another thing I read very recently was this woman, she was saying that she was staying in this toxic relationship in the hope that it would get better. And she was working so hard in the hope that it would get better. But when you live in hope, you're sort of living in no man's land, really, because it's hoping. It's a wishy-washy dream, something that you want to happen, but you have no control over. And no matter how hard you try, it's like the relationship with my daughter. I can hope that it gets better, but if I don't work, she won't see any difference, and she'll just continue, right? But because she sees that I'm really trying, and I'm, you know, some of the things are not working, sometimes she'll sit, and you can see she's trying desperately to fathom, to change, you know. So it does work on both, if you know. But you've got to stop living in hope. So you have to break that bridge, cut that bridge. You don't want to live in hope. You want to live in the now and build. And she said that when she realized this and she cut that bridge, so for her it meant leaving the husband, etc., she could then start to rebuild her own life, as opposed to hoping to be the perfect wife, hoping to be the perfect mother, hoping to be the perfect whatever, right? So you've got to, you know, try and work out whatever it is you need to work out so that you get to the stage of what is the lesson. I think that is such an important step. What is the lesson? You know, when you do that, that's like, wow, I've managed to break that bridge. I haven't, you know, cut it off yet, but I've broken that bridge. I'm not going down that path so readily. And it is a major step. Well, it was for me, right? And I think it is a major step. And then just don't live in hope. Cut that bridge immediately. Don't live in hope. Be the person you're supposed to be. You are the perfect mother. You are the perfect wife. If it's not working, then something is wrong, and try and work on that. But you are perfect as you are. I'm not saying you can't get better, of course, but you are a perfect being in your own right. You may be hurting, you may be wounded. You know, we just got to heal our wounds and move forwards. But we are perfect. And reverse engineering is so important, because it does stop you. You know, it doesn't mean to say of course, I always reverse engineer now. No, it doesn't. But you know, I try as much as possible. I sort of note an event on the diary, and I'm like, oh yeah, no, right. What do I need for that particular day? You know, so I try and picture the day. How do I want to feel? You know, do I want a tablecloth? Do I not want a tablecloth? You know, whatever it might be. Do I want music? Not music? You know, you just get a feel for it. And then when you're, you know, going around shopping, oh, that would be nice, you know, and you'll just pick things out without really planning too much, because I don't really like to plan. I don't like to live in a box, but that's just me. But so I hope that's sort of been of some use to you. I'm sorry, it's a bit long-winded, but you know, any comments, Brittany?
No, that's good. I guess, is that
I can't hear you. Oh, sorry, it's my door.
Okay. I was I don't know. Can you hear me, Kat?
Yeah, we can now.
Okay. So there's a couple of things that came up for me, and I just want to make a distinction. The first thing that came up was just making a distinction between the big picture and moment to moment. So for myself, when I think of the big picture of what's happening in my life and what it is, the challenges that I have in front of me that I need to deal with, I get overwhelmed, and my thoughts can take off on me really easily. So one thing that has really helped me in making sure that that doesn't happen, and that I do get to enjoy the moments that I do have right now, is taking a look at the big picture intentionally. So choosing when you want to look at the big picture, but then living in the small one. So Now, yeah, I suppose that I do explain things in a way that might seem very simple, but never be fooled. It's not. It's simple, but it's not easy. And you have to really want it. And like I've shared on certain calls and such, is if I didn't have my son and I wasn't born in the maybe even the generation that I was born in, and I didn't have the mind I have and all the factors that play in, a lot of things would be different. You know, I can think back and see how I used to react or act in certain situations, and I don't even recognize myself. And the only way that I have been able to step out of that is moment to moment. And it wasn't until I got that it's only in the moment that we can control. The big picture is just overwhelming, and it's going to change on a daily basis depending on our actions and our choices. However, in the moment that you have is the only moment that you have. So even if it's you have 1,000 things that you have to take care of, you're in a seriously toxic relationship where the other person, like Kat was explaining, is not evolved enough to understand that this is not a life that they have to live or that you have to live, then you see in front of you this massive decision that you have to take, and that is to leave that relationship. And if you have children, nobody knows it better than Kat. It is the hardest thing in the world to do. And but if you know that you're worthy, which takes me to my next point, but I'll just finish. If you know that you're worthy and you take moment to moment to moment, and you just have the courage in that small moment, then those moments through the day will add up, and you will look at the big picture and say, wow, I have no idea how life is so good. But it's in the moment that you have to actually put most of your pretty much all of your focus, unless you are intentionally looking at the big picture. And my next thing is start now by forgiving yourself. And that is, you will struggle and you will struggle and you will struggle by and trying to do taking these steps. Even if you're looking at the big picture, you're looking at the moment, you're trying just to be, consciously, you're aware in the moment of how you need to act or what you need to do. It will be nearly impossible for you to take those actions if you haven't forgiven yourself. If you are holding a grudge against yourself because of past decisions or past actions or whatever it might be, you will not get through those barriers. So the first thing is to just realize that that person deserves forgiveness. You deserve forgiveness from yourself. And that's more important than forgiving the people in your life who have hurt you. You have to start with forgiving yourself. And you know what? This could be an entirely a different subject or a different call.
I was going to say that we're going to leave for next week because that, or whenever you get back, because that is like so important and such a good point.
So we'll leave that subject alone right now. But I will leave you with it to ponder with and to think about, because it absolutely, it's not fucking easy. It's one of the hardest things you'll ever do, to let go of the things you've done in the past and move forward to be a better person. And that's the truth. So another thing I wanted to share is I can relate to Kat's situation where she was stuck in traffic. I live close to a national park, Jasper National Park. Beautiful, beautiful park. Wildlife, because they're all protected. They're not afraid of traffic. They're all over the roads, and you drive by cliffs with mountain sheep all over them. And it really is. It's beautiful. So I've driven through Jasper so many times that I've seen it, right? And I'll drive through there on autopilot without realizing the beauty. Of course, there's moments where I'm like, oh, that's so pretty. But really, I don't really take it in. But one day I was stopped in construction on that road, and I caught myself, because I was traveling to BC, like the province next to me. And I was in a hurry. I left late, of course, and you know, it's a 6-hour drive, so it's like it was. I was stressed out about not making it on time, and so we stop in construction. As far ahead as I can see, all I can see is vehicles. I look in my mirror, as far back as I can see, it's all vehicles, and I thought, I'm never gonna make it there during daylight, and of course, this is what happens, and my mind starts spinning. And I also, due to the work that I've put in moment to moment of being conscious of what's happening with my thoughts and basically driving my mind instead of it driving me, and not easily, but just staying in it and keep trying and keep doing it, forgiving yourself, not beating yourself up, and just moving forward with it every single day, every moment that you can. I was able to sit back and say, oh my God, look at what I'm surrounded by. Like this, people travel across the world to come see this park, and I live 45 minutes from it. If there is a place to be stopped in construction, it's there. And I started looking around, and I looked to my left. I actually shared this on my Instagram. I was amazed to actually even just in the moment catch it. You know, it was like a butterfly catching this moment that I was like so valuable and beautiful. I looked to my left, and there is a sheep. There's a male and a mom and 2 little babies. And I sorry, I'm not knowledgeable on what the name is. But anyway, so they're crawling up. They're laying all over the cliff like they're
ram and a ewe.
What's that?
It's a ram and a ewe.
There you go. There you go. And so the ewe is the mom.
Yeah.
So the ewe is following the ram up the cliff, and she has her youngins behind her. There's 2 of them. He goes off to the right, and she goes off to the left, and the little ones are kind of tripping on the rocks and trying to follow her with their little legs. And so I ended up catching it on video. And the rest of that trip, the beauty of what I was seeing brought tears to my eyes. I was so grateful that this drive was so unbelievably gorgeous, like I had seen it for the very first time. And it's amazing what the mind can do when we choose to drive our mind, and we choose to, we can sit there and be pissed off, or we can do like what Kat said, and we can dance, we can put some music on, we can look around. That's a decision that we get to make as human beings. It's pretty amazing. So anyway, that was basically, that was it. That was what the points that I came up with while you were talking.
Well, great. Do you think you can put I don't know whether you can grab back your Instagram and put them, maybe a link or something to your account so we can share that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the post it'll be down the feed a little bit, but yeah, it's
cool. Oh, good. Well, put the date, then we can look at least up the date.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll see if I can just reshare that post.
Great. Right. Well, I think that's enough information for these poor people to, you know, we could go on and on. Obviously, there's no problem, but let's keep it as much as simple as possible. That's not even English, what I'm saying.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. And yeah, we will see you guys next call.
And we're going to follow your Instagram for how your packing is going today.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good call. And I'll definitely be posting for my trip. I'm going to Tony Robbins. Surprise! Okay. Love to all, and see you next call.
Bye.
Bye.